second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item 7 is the regular agenda, public hearing, the economic development agreement for Project Matthias. Is that correct? Matthias. Presentations is Christy Chris, Business Service Manager, and I would move the public hearing be open.
Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
real quickly, before we start on our regular agenda, make a motion to approve Councilman Kimball, who is Councilman Curlin, who is out of town.
I will second.
Approve him being out of town. Second, any other discussion? All in favor? All right.
Thank you. Sorry, Christie, go ahead.
Thank you.
That's fine. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have the pleasure this evening of letting you know that we have a new industry that will be moving into the Gastonia Technology Park. Project Matthias has visited us about a year and a half ago, and we made the final cut. They've chosen to locate here in Gastonia. They are a German company. They make carbide cutting tools, small family-owned company. They are planning on locating at the corner of Reppy Court and Gastonia Technology Parkway on approximately about 3 acres. About a $2 million initial investment and starting out with 4 employees, but with the possibility of expansion. We have proposed our standard incentive package for them, which is our Economic Development Tax Investment Grant, and then also waiving the system expansion fees. Those are the one-time fees for the water and sewer that has been standard with companies in the technology park. And at this time, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Christie, I just have one question, and that is, recently Chiquita Banana moved to Charlotte, and they were just taken over by another firm in Europe, and they may be leaving Charlotte. So, under their agreement, if they left, they would have to pay back what the city had originally invested with them. Do we have that same thing within this contract?
I believe so. I'm gonna ask Melissa.
No, they're actually in these tax incentive agreements, there are no clawback provisions. So they get the tax break for the year that they're in operation, and then the next year, obviously, they don't continue to get if they go out of business, they don't continue to get the tax breaks, but they do get the not the tax breaks, I'm sorry, the investment grant for the years that they're in operation. But we do not have clawback provisions.
And I will add the way that the grant is set up, that they do have to pay the taxes for that year before receiving that portion back to them. So it's on a year-by-year basis. They do have to pay the taxes first, then they receive the grant for that appropriate amount.
Thank you.
Questions? Any others? Move for adoption. Is there a second?
Second here.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. Done. Thank you.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
You know, the voice of Gastonia, we get these notices to,
Yeah,
you
I know who it is.
and all that. She's the voice of Gastonia.
That's right.
Does a good job, too, I think.
It's a great job. Come on up, Rusty. It's next, but I have to do it you'll find when you get older that you have to, and I really have my calendar mixed up. And thank you, Melissa McGee, for being here. I know in our session of the work session, we had a moment of remembrance for Ash Smith's mother, and I wanted to say that we still are remembering him very, very much so, and we've all talked to him, I'm sure, and she passed away a week and a half ago. And it's so, meeting-wise, I don't remember what we did and didn't do, but we can say it again if we want to. And but we certainly want to remember him. He's with his dad. She was 72 years old, too young, but we don't have a say in that. But he is where he's supposed to be. Okay, Rusty, regular agenda, item 8 is a resolution authorizing condemnation proceedings, Tittman Road GO bond widening. Rusty Boss, Director of Engineer.
Might want to say go Clemson.
No, we're not talking Clemson. Clemens.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The very first thing I have in my notes with these condemnation things is to tell you that since the time that we wrote this memo, that we've been able to resolve some things with some of these folks.
Great.
And we removed some. Unfortunately, this is the one instance where the folks that we're dealing with on these properties are just moving very slowly. They have a lot of procedures and processes that they have to go through. And so the list hasn't changed. This will be the list that we put up for the resolution this evening. I'd hope to knock some of these down, but just for the processes in play, that didn't happen. Real briefly, Tittman Road, we're widening it from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. It currently has, side ditches and grass right up to the pavement. We're gonna be putting curb and gutter and sidewalks and planter strips down and making it 3 lanes. This is the entire length from New Hope to Lowell Bethesda. Construction plans are being completed, and right-of-way acquisition is the next phase in that. We've been doing that since about November of last year, so we've been at it for probably 3 or 4 good months here. There's a total of 57 parcels that we've been in contact with folks on. And we've resolved the majority of them. There are just 6 property owners here that count for 8 properties that we haven't had resolved. Of course, if council chooses to pass this resolution, that doesn't mean we're gonna stop working with these folks. The majority of these are big entities or heirs of, where it's really a matter of coordination of getting all of the paperwork through everybody, all the people's right hands. The situation we're in, though, is we want to move this project forward. And this was the deadline that we had established, and we really want to keep moving at it. So we want to go ahead with the resolution at the same time that we're still working with these folks to get these signatures resolved. We feel confident that 5 of these will probably get signatures on. The Robert Blackman and Laverne Blackman are the ones that we're having most of the time kind of trying to figure out where they're at, and why they're going, and what we need to do to get them where they need to be. They have their reasons. They've reversed course on us twice now. They weren't going to sign, and they were going to sign. Now they're not going to sign. So we continue that engagement with those folks to try and make sure we get a good handle on what their issue is and get it resolved. But other than that, council recommends passing the resolution. I'll be glad to try and answer your questions.
Questions? Rusty? Yes, sir.
Rusty, so from your narrative, it indicates that we have been able to get service to all these people, because sometimes it's, that can be a real disconnect, is you don't have the lawful service, therefore it elongates the process.
That was one of the issues with the heirs of the Loftus
Yeah.
family.
Okay.
It took us a little bit of time to find the actual, I guess they call it personal representative now of that estate, the person in charge of it. But we have touched base
Good.
with the actual individuals on every parcel, and we've
Great.
contacted, made offers to each one of those. Yes.
Good, thank you, sir.
Mr. Gallagher.
Rusty, what seems to be the big sticking point, that they're gonna lose land?
I think the Blackmans are I think they're not sure what they want. I think that's it. We've explained it to them a couple times, and we've had it staked and met with them on site, and pointed out curb and gutter, sidewalk, your driveway. We've gone through everything with them physically to their property. I think they understand that. I just think that they're not certain what they want. I don't think it's a monetary value. This is a real hard one for us to get a good handle on what's going on.
What about the churches?
The churches are all in agreement with it. They just have their own bureaucracy that things have to go through.
Understand that?
So the 2 churches, their headquarters are in other places, and they're going through their attorneys.
Rusty, on 199, the Blackman is, they're the, you start at New Hope Road, and you go down on the left side until you get way down to the 3 on the end. They're the only ones, and I'm sure they're very aware of that, are they not? That, they're on either side of them, and all the way up and down through there, and it looks like theirs is, actually, they've got a larger piece of property than
Yes.
either side of them and other side.
And on their property, we're actually not acquiring any right-of-way. We're just acquiring utility easements for the overhead lines to be moved into.
Okay.
So it's, again, that's one of those ones where we're just having difficult time with communication and getting them to sort of understand and tell us what their issues are.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Condemnation is not something that I have a strong feeling for, okay? And most of the time, 9 times out of 10, I vote against that. But I do understand that there are times when condemnation is needed and necessary to move a project, a street project, road project forward. So as much as I don't particularly care for condemnation, and I hope that we're able to get it all taken care of before we have to go to the final part of it, I would make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Just want to say that Tittman Road is a real dangerous road the way it is right now, and I think this is just going to be a great improvement for it. And you're right, Councilwoman Craig, I concur with you exactly. I don't like to do condemnation, but this is just going to make an improvement for everyone that lives there.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
In case I didn't close the hearing of Christie's, I think I did.
Technically, when you have the vote on the actual matter that's being considered, that closes the public hearing.
That closes
as
it?
well.
That's good to know. All right.
Ask the same question.
Questions? Okay, item 9 is the Utilities Committee meeting report. Councilman McAteer.
I'm gonna turn it over to Ed.
All right, that'll be Exhibit A, Ed. I knew you was gonna do this.
He knows
Mayor,
it
member-
better than me.
Well, that's right.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is the Utilities Committee report on Monday, March 24th, 2014. And the first item, which was the major item there, dealt with the discussion of the water and sewer system expansion fees. And you can see that the committee's action was to vote 3-0 to table the item until the next Utilities Committee meeting so the staff could provide further information on the financial impacts. And essentially, one of the options that we'll be looking at is if the city's expansion fee could be reduced to 20% with an increase in 2016 to 75%, and then another increase in 2017. There's also another option, the same percentages above, but 2.5 years of a grandfathered period of time. That first option is a 5-year period. And when you look at the background information, the staff presented that information to the committee. What was explained was the history of this, and when the city council adopted these fees, there was a lawsuit. The lawsuit then was settled, and the fees were supposed to go in at a layered approach. Right now, we have 60% of what we charge today is 60% of the fees that were approved by the city council back when the program was initially started in 2010. What the staff was proposing, because the building community had requested some relief, was to draw that back to 40% and to have that operate for a period of time and then go back to a schedule where you would go to the original fees. I might say that had we stayed on the regular schedule, we would already, the last 2 years, this city council has not increased them at all. We've kept them at 60, even though we could have increased them, because I think we are all aware that the development community is trying to dig out from the recession. So we are trying to work with the development community, and so these options that the committee was recommending are some variations, and I think there'll be a good discussion at our next meeting, and then potentially back with that recommendation back to the full city council. The other items dealt with updates. One was the e-waste program, and this is where we are going forward to get potentially a grant. This is for solid waste. Right now, if you put on the curb a old television set or something like that, we won't pick it up. It'll just sit there. Well, you can't do that. So we have to pick it up anyway. And then the question is, where does this go? The landfill will not accept them. They have to go into special areas. So what we're setting up is a system where we can contract with an entity to be able to deal with our e-waste. And since Linda's here, she may want to talk about that later. The water treatment plant update, Matt Bernhardt was there and gave a briefing on that. We are very much working on the currently we are looking at, and we've interviewed firms for the construction manager at risk for the water plant. Then there's the update for the sanitary sewer to the town of Stanley. And again, this was provided information, we're moving forward on that project. And then also the electric substation. Matt Bernhardt and Paul Jakubczak are here to give any specific information if the council wants to hear more about those. And that's the report.
Questions, Mr. Mudd? Matt? Thank you, sir. Item 10, Ed, is amendment to the advocacy agenda.
Regarding the motion, you can motion to accept the
Well,
report.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Okay.
I just want to say thank you for adding the moped in there.
Yeah. Okay. Item 10, Ed.
Okay. Yeah, item 10 is the amendment to the 2014 advocacy agenda. And as you can see from the last version that we had at our last city council meeting, we added 2 items at the end. One deals with the mopeds, and the other one deals with an item that was provided really from city attorney's office. And it had directly, there was a case, Wynn versus City of Gastonia, and there's some specific situations there, and I think if you have further questions, Melissa will be able to answer that. But I attached also a little blog that was done by someone from the School of Government, where they talked about some of the history of the mopeds and some of the pending or potential legislation. And as you can see, the state's trying to get their arms around it. And so what we'll do is lend our support to trying to provide more structure and particularly in terms of insurance and particularly in terms of registration of mopeds. But there's even whether or not people can have more than one person on a moped, how old do you have to be? There's a number of regulations involved.
Yes, sir.
Just one question, it's for Melissa. On the personnel issue here, is there some type of law for like whistleblowers on the books at all? Because that's what this pertains to, someone blowing the whistle, bringing it to attention so they don't get any kind of retribution back on them.
There are federal whistleblower statutes, and honestly, I'm not exactly sure if there are state whistleblower statutes. I would have to look into that to see exactly what statutes would apply. But with regard to this particular issue, because it was in his personnel file that he did have the right, and it was not protected by, basically, and most whistleblower statutes protect you from retaliation. They don't necessarily protect you from the release of your name,
So anonymity is not there
Right.
with whistleblower status. So this provides the anonymity where,
Right.
for example, if a citizen's thinking he's being tailgated by a police officer and complains to his superiors, that name doesn't get out there.
Right, or if
So
another employee,
See someone like
Yeah.
throw solid waste or in an area that's not to be thrown, and
Right.
someone complains to the superior.
right, this would mean, under this court case, that name would have to be released. If we knew it, it would have to be released if it was the basis of a personnel action. And the court defined pretty much anything as a personnel action. So, that's why, but that could be changed by legislative action, and so that's why that request is here.
So that, yeah, because, all right.
And I will say that in the lawsuit, there were a lot of amicus briefs, which are basically friend of the court briefs that other groups file on to show that they support your position. And a lot of, like the Sheriff's Association and a lot of different groups like that filed amicus briefs on behalf of the city, but the court ended up holding that as long as it was part of the personnel file, it had to be released.
Thank you.
Okay. Ed?
So, if the council could, if there's any further questions on this advocacy agenda, we can approve it this evening if you like. Now, we can always amend it. And as time goes on, I mean, any time, any council meeting, if there's an issue that's before the state, because I don't think that this is necessarily comprehensive. In fact, I think it's probably too long. If we went and actually sat down with our legislators, you would want to really probably have no more than 4 bullet points. This is just, there are some issues to deal with the Shield Museum very specifically, with the ABC system very specifically, but if the council feels comfortable with it, we could approve it tonight and then again amend it as we go through the rest of the year.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any more discussion? Yes, sir.
For legal counsel, Counselor, I think I need to recuse myself from this. I'm a member of the Fraternal Order of Police, and I believe they were involved in this litigation, so I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
I move that Councilman Kimball be recused.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of your motion? Okay, you're excused. Okay, there is a motion and a second to approve. Any other questions? All in favor? Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. Melissa, is anything you'd like to come from the attorney's office?
I do have